All right. Hey, witches. I am here with the gorgeous, luscious, amazing Enchantress Shane. And we are going to talk a little bit about her amazing magic. But first, I wanted to know if you would introduce yourself a little bit.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I love being in connection with you. I am Enchantress Shane, and I am the head enchantress of the Enchanted Burlesque Coven. And I have a lot of hats I used to wear, and they've all culminated in this one. So I have a background in therapy and coaching and preschool teacher and theater teacher. And for the first time in my life, I feel whole, like all my parts are in one place. And that is what the coven is for, that I lead, is for women to bring their creative magic out into the world with the confidence of a showgirl. So whether people want to dance burlesque or not, it's just about having that confidence to strut yourself across the stage of life.
Oh, I love that. I love it.
Thank
And I
you.
think it's so awesome. Like, what, of course, my audience doesn't know is you and I have very similar backgrounds. Like, when we met, I'd say something, you're like, well, I did that too. And then you'd say something, and you're like, I did that too. And so you have a background in burlesque, which I think is just so amazing. And then before that, into teaching. And here I had initially started down the path of getting my teaching degree and then veered off into the rabbit hole of metaphysics. But during that time, I had a very short career as a cyber punk go-go dancer. I just think that that's
Such
so
great
fun.
research. It is so fun. Yeah, who knew? I mean, I was actually stripping and I was a preschool teacher at the same time, different hours of the day, but
Of course.
what great research. Somebody once asked me that in an obnoxious way, but what a great
Oh, no.
research to have, being on a stage and being seen, and how we now own businesses that support women and
Yeah.
witches and magical folk. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. All right, before we get into our little Q&A, I wanted to
Yes.
pull a card, and I'm doing
Ooh.
that from the Silver Era Tarot.
Ooh.
And I love this deck because it kind of pulls into that glamour of the silver screen silent era.
I need
There's,
that deck.
right, it's so pretty. I love this deck. This is one of my newbies, and I just love it. All right, so would you pick a number for me?
Sure. 8.
8. All right. I'm gonna do this. The only issue with this deck is it's very blocky. Like, it's thick cards, which
Oh, got ya.
sturdy, but man, you should see me trying to shuffle this thing. It's so funny. So I love the number 8. I think it's awesome that you said that because 8 is a foundation number for money magic and for flow, which
Mm-hmm.
I think is just so awesome. So what started with you with burlesque? Because that has nothing really, that isn't exactly what to do with our Q&A today, but I love that you do burlesque, and I love seeing your pictures on Facebook of your performances.
You know, I mean, I love feathers. I love extravagance. My grandmother was a dressmaker, and she used to make wedding gowns.
Oh, really?
And I think it really ties into her and that black and white era of elegance and femininity and power. So it's more than just like, oh, I want to dress up. It's like my inner life feels confident and really allowing others to enjoy me being in my pleasure.
I love that. Yeah. That's so empowering. I love when we get like passed down stuff from our ancestors living and not living. I think that's so awesome. Oh no, Shane. I don't know if you can hear me, honey, but your screen is frozen on my end. Oh no, I don't know if I lost her or not. Let's see if I can text her or type to her. Screen frozen.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay, great.
Yes.
Okay. The screen got frozen on my end. Can you see me okay? Are you
Okay.
back? Okay.
I'm back, and I'm
Okay.
not on Wi-Fi, so I should be fine.
Okay, cool. All right, great. All right. So I have a card. I'm glad that you're back. I have a card, and I love this card. It is The Queen of Pentacles.
Wow, it's a beautiful card.
I love the Queen energy. I think that you so totally embrace that Queen energy. And the Queen of Pentacles, a lot of people think of her as being prudent and kind of like closed off, that she's not the most like exaggerated queen, like the Queen of Wands or, the Queen of Cups is. But I think that she is majestic in her own, like, foundational, you can't shake me kind of sense. And I like that. So yeah.
Well, and my word for 2018 is unshakable, by the way.
There you go. I love being in alignment. That's so sexy. I love it.
And also what I love about that card is she looks very humble. Like, and that's a really big part of who I am. So beautiful.
Oh, I love it. That's so awesome. All right, let's get into it. I can't wait to hear your story, because this is new to me too. So it's not just new to my audience, it's new to me.
Great.
Okay, first of all, before we get into this, I know you call yourself an enchantress, but like, how do you identify as far as your spirituality?
So there's a bunch of things, and it all comes back to me. So as a very young child and growing up, I'm Jewish. But it's rare that I found anyone that's like, oh, I'm also Jewish and I'm edgy and I dance naked and all these things. And so it keeps coming back to, I am all the things that I'm interested in. And that to me equals spirituality. And that to me is the higher power, is my highest self. And, there comes with a bunch of labels, and sometimes it makes other people comfortable to know what that means. But the truth is, like, I'm constantly evolving and growing, and I'm open to any possibility. And so Enchantress it just came to me. It literally was a divine channeling that was like, that's what you are. And it feels right.
Oh, I love it. Well, I teach, and I kind of embody that whole concept that if you have an interest in it, that is part of your path, that you are divinely attuned and resonating with that. Now, some people say that makes me a little bit of a hedonist, but I'm all for that. If it makes me a hedonist, it makes me a hedonist. But I love that. And I love Enchantress. I think that we don't hear that word very often nowadays. Yeah.
And also my superpower is joy. And so the more I claimed Enchantress, the more I realized when I show up in a room, whether it's teaching women or little kids or men and women or teenagers in prison, which are all some of the things that I do, I leave them feeling enchanted, like with hope and possibility and joy. And so everything that I've done, whenever the title comes to me, it's like I rise to that occasion, no matter what happens. And so that's sort of how it's culminated into being the truth.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's so awesome. That's great. I love that you say your superpower is joy. That is fabulous. All right. When did you discover that? Because were you just born and just have always been this way, or was there like an awakening moment? Great question.
So I was born this way, and I remember feeling large and joyful and proud until the 6th grade. And then I really went extremely opposite way into self-hatred and really judging and second guessing and 50th guessing everything I did. And I lived in a suffering way. I wore my hair over my face. I wouldn't look at anybody from the profile. I hated my nose. I just hated myself, like really deep self-loathing. And so it was really shutdown time. I never wanted to be seen. I didn't even know I could dance and move my head. I would just be very stuck. And then when I turned 19, I wanted to go on a trip to Pennsylvania, and I looked in the back of this newspaper called The Village Voice, because I always knew I was sexy. There was always something very sexy and appealing, but no one taught me what to do with my new parts. I was just like awkward and uncomfortable and contracted. And so I went to go work in a strip club because I was like, oh, I have these parts. And little did I know that turned into a huge celebration of me being in the mirror and being like, wow, I like what I look like. or I'm willing to like what I look like. And I hadn't yet looked at the inside of me, but the outside felt very great and beautiful and amazing. And I upgraded my manipulation of how I used that, which also wasn't that healthy, but part of the research. And then theater came into my life, and that was the inner work. So being on a stage was part of stripping, and it was part of theater, and it was part of me revealing outer and inner parts.
Wow. Oh, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Well, and that's so unique though, because so many of the people I experience this whole revelation with, they start on the inside and then work it outward to using their outer part, or, you know, manipulating, which is, you know, a word that we're starting to embrace now, and, you know, all that. So I think that's so unique that, you know, you kind of did it the opposite way. I think that's awesome.
Interesting.
Love that. So did your did the spiritual exploration around that time, did that coincide with this new exploration with body and with theater and all that stuff happen around the same time, or was that later?
Theater really, I mean, I've always been sort of a quirky kid, you know, noticing and having a relationship with someone who I thought looked like God to me. And also always being an empath, even when I was a little kid, like feeling bad for garbage that would be rolling down the street. And yeah, so, but the spiritual part came, I read the book, The Celestine Prophecy, and it was like still during when I was still stripping, and I started to become awake, where I was like a love bully. And I was like, you have to read this book, you have to take this class, you have to, you know, just really pushing it on people. Because I would see them suffering or talking about the same problems over and over. And it got way more intense when I went to acting class, to my improv class. And I showed up depressed, anxious, judgmental. And it was the first place where I would let that be seen. And I would leave the class with more energy. And it's, you know, time-wise, I never remember in order, but then I was also working with children with autism who were in another planet and were teaching me to be present if you want. Like they were like, I'm not even present unless you're going to be present. So learning through theater how important it is to be with my emotions, to be with my spirit, really connected how I show up in this world, what I think of as spiritual, and how that makes me relate to people. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's cool. That's so cool. I love that, especially, you know, the development when you're working with other kids. And I think that that's part of spiritual exploration. You know, you talked about being a love bully and all. Oh my gosh, yeah, I so resonate with that so much. Now, as you're doing this, because you said you went on to be a stripper and you were studying spirituality, or, you know, different aspects of it, and really finding yourself, how was this taken as far as your family? Like, were they really open to this, or no?
It's so funny. As you say that, I'm just like, wow, they love me so much now. But I didn't tell them, you know, I didn't tell them a lot of anything. And they are, I think I was always really scary to them because I was always really powerful. And so I didn't share that I was a dancer. They did know I made a lot of money in some kind of like bikini club or something. I don't know, whatever I said, I just said enough that they would just leave me alone. So it wasn't like I was fully supported there. I didn't tell everybody. It was like my own little secret. And I think you asked this before, but the thing that made me really come out and share is pretty recent, that I was a dancer. I mean, I graduated Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts. And there's like 400 women in a room who are like, that's cool, that's amazing. And I'm like, oh, it's not just something I used to do. And it still has fire to it, but there's no shame. It's almost like badass. Like I did that, you know? And so showing up with the support of women has been, I mean, everything to me. so that I can integrate all parts of me and be the person who works with, who's educated with a master's, and I don't have to be fragmented and be sexy over here and still be like appropriate. There's no malintent, but to tie it all together is the enchantress in me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh my, okay. So you said so much that
I know. I'm trying to stay focused, but I get so excited.
No, I love it. I'm feeling it. Okay. Going back when you said your family you were always kind of scary. Oh my gosh, I feel that so much. And I think so many of the people who are going to be viewing this or are viewing this are going to feel it too, when we are in our power or just barely tapped into that power, people notice. They notice it, and it makes them uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it does. And so, I mean, you knew it. You got that. When did you kind of feel like you knew that they were a little bit scared or?
So powerful. What a question. I just realized I remembered the other day when I was young, there was this hurricane in New York. I don't know if it was everywhere. It was Hurricane Gloria. I was in 3rd grade, so maybe I was like 9. And we were playing the song. We're out in the street, like hanging out with a bunch of friends, and it was really windy. And I was standing on a bumper of a car, and I was dancing. And it was, it's such an 80s song, Gloria. And I was dancing, and I remember my mother looking out, and I remember her, it was just an energy that I was like, shut it down. I was like, that's too much. And it wasn't a conscious thing. It wasn't like she was yelling at me. It was just like, I felt myself getting big and the wind and moving. And then I felt the vision. And I was like, I can't show that to her. I can't show that to my parents. It's too much. And 3rd grade is like 8, 7, something really, really young, probably 8 or 9.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have to be words. I think that's something that a lot of people who never experience the coming out process or the feeling fragmented process that they often ask, well, did they tell you not to? Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a demand of you can't be this way. It can often feel like you feel that disapproval or you feel that worry. And kids are really in line with that. They know when their parents are not feeling all right, so yeah. And you said about the compartmentalization, like you don't have to do that anymore. You've got that master's and you're sexy and all that. So when did that come about? Like, when were you able to kind of realize I don't have to be one or the other, I can just be?
It was literally at so in Mama Gina's Womanly School of Arts, there's a graduation. And it was the same weekend that was men's weekend. And men are all invited to be educated and to show up. And I was on the stage for some reason. There was like 20 of us. And she turned and said, who wants to give this couple a lap dance? I think that was it. And I just slowly raised my hand. And she's very in tune, working with thousands of women all over the world. She called on me. And I was like, I forgot how much fun it is to be seen in my own pleasure and embodying that. And I had some friends in the audience, and all of a sudden it was an integration of like my sexy dancing world doesn't have to be when I go to a location and sign in and pay a house fee. I can create that. I can be open to it. And, there's, let's say 500 people, 500 women and 100 or 400, whatever, a lot of people, 500 people in this audience. And I can do this and be in my power. It was a freedom. And same thing like acting, once you do something, once your body experiences that experience, it's owned. So where else can I do this? What else is out there for me? And I still have a business called Your Beautiful Child. And then I was like, that's over. It's enchanted embodiment, and it was like came to a screeching halt, because that part of me that is a sensual, feminine, powerful woman was like not really in play when I was working with families and children. It was more like, make sure I wear baggy clothes and, don't look pretty And even the videos I had made for my families and parents was like, no makeup, no flair. And I'm like, that's not who I am. And so Enchanted Embodiment was born, and the Enchantress was born, and all the support from all the people that saw me that day. I couldn't go backwards. These people had all seen me in my power. And so there's nowhere else for me to go.
I witnessed that so much. Yes. I love it. That whole, you can't go back.
Nope.
Once you have experienced the divine, which is what I would call that. That is the divine. That's our spark, and it has glowed and emanated, and other people have seen it in us. You can't go back. There is no going back, and if you try, the discomfort is so horrendous, you just can't.
Woo, I just felt that in my whole body. Yeah.
Right? I know. I got chills. I love it. Okay, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit.
Yes.
Once you owned this, once you were like, this is who I am, did you meet any resistance at all?
Great question. So I live in a small beach town in New York, and so I'm the Enchantress. I write an advice column, like everybody knows that's my name. And so sometimes I do stand up and some comedy, and I felt that people were just like, oh, the Enchantress, like call me Freedom. Like everyone was having their own fun with it. And there was something uncomfortable about it, as if I was like, I had taken it as a projection of like some kind of joke, like some kind of glow wrestler. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like, like having your title, it's like Mickey Mouse kind of thing. And then one of my very dear and powerful sister friends, she was saying it with a tone that was kind of like jovial. And I went to her with my very powerful communication self that still feels like, oh, I'm going to lose a friendship, or I'm going to and I said, when you say the Enchantress, I feel like you're just tossing it out. And I want to share that with you because it comes from a really deep place and a culmination of so many things that it's from a deep place. And I'm asking that you say it with respect and to the story that it comes with. And and it was a moment. We both had a moment. And she respected it. And she was like, wow, this is a real sisterhood. Like she was grateful. There's a little something I wrote down. I can't find my journal, but it was like, what if I assumed that when I share a truth, that it will come back to me with love? Like, what if I walked around the world like that? And it happens to be true. And so when there's any resistance, or people that are sort of like, and some people still say like, oh, look, the Enchantress. And it's great, but it also, I see who it's coming from. And sometimes it is coming from a limited place. And so I can't run around in the world trying to prove it or be defensive or explain the depth. But I choose who to do that with in a very discerning way. And with my sisters and friends and people that I love, they know that it comes from a deep place. And when someone makes fun or is goofy about it, I love them because it's their inner child that doesn't know any better, that is trying to find a way to be comfortable with it in their own discomfort.
Yeah, you brought tears to my eyes. I've been there, but you handled that so well. I love that so much. Didn't you have a program? I'm going to go ahead and you had a program recently that talked about is like the doormat about
doormat rehab.
Yeah, about the communication with people and how not being afraid to say, hey, this has hurt me, or hey, I'm not hearing this as being a loving communication. Can we talk about that or whatever? And I can definitely hear your experience with that. That's wow.
Doormat rehab is something that's always woven in all my programs. And the one I have coming up, the Enchanted Burlesque Coven, we talk about being in a rehab because no one I know, including myself, was taught to speak the truth. because I was raised to be a people pleaser and to be seen and not heard, and all these things that, not even just raised, but our society has given us, even from Barbie or fairy tale theater and all these things. And so I have taken so many courses, and one of them was called Circling, but it's based on nonviolent communication, that it's not aggressive, it's assertive to speak the truth. And just last night I was hanging out with a sister friend, and I just felt all this resistance to her. And so today I sent her a message like, I don't know what it is, but I'm feeling this resistance in our relationship. I don't know what it is. If there's something that you want to share or we can explore this, I'd really welcome it. And that is so the opposite of what I've experienced, creating stories of what I think people think. It's such a waste of time and energy, and also is a divide. And I am looking to let more love in. And yeah, it might become uncomfortable or awkward, but we're going to end up loving each other more. And it's really a powerful thing to have that confidence and to not just be a doormat and rationalize why it's okay and all the stuff that keeps us playing small, or kept me playing small, that there's actual through lines. So you don't have to be mumbly and fumbly and bumbly. You can say, I have something I want to bring up, and it feels awkward and confronting. Are you open to that? Like checking in so that it's never making someone wrong.
Oh, I love that's good magic. That is good magic.
Yes.
Right there. I love that. Oh, yes. I have little notes over here because I will.
Good. I love it. Yeah, no, this is exciting stuff. It's hard to keep it centered sometimes.
Yeah. All right. What is the best, most joyous experience you've had since owning Enchantress and coming out?
I love that question. So I bartend at a bar on Sundays. It's my friend's bar. It is a community center of sorts. There's also food, and I brought my vision board magazines to do there. So you can imagine it's just that kind of place where you just come. And I did a burlesque show in my most risque outfit. And this is my community. I live in Rockaway. It's very small. You see the same people over and over again. And it's a bar that I work in. So I'm found. I'm seen. And I did this burlesque show. It was for Halloween. And I got down to a white sheer stocking piece with pasties and like really rocked it, where I was not in my head. And I remember the feeling, and people were chanting my name. And I don't live here that long, but the expression of a divine, powerful feminine I was not looking for attention. I was looking for a celebration space that I can be who I am in real time, integrating friends, family. I had my high school friend and his wife came, and just that feeling of pride that I'm a performer and I have all these degrees and blah, 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 but that I am most happy, most safe, most powerful when I'm in my sensuality, in my creativity, and in my safe space with people that love me. I just want to keep doing that. And I want to hold space for other women to do the same.
That is so awesome. I love that. I love it. And I think I saw you say something about that, but I don't think I fully grasped like what that experience was. I'm so happy you shared that. Thank you.
Yes.
What do you think that your life would be like now if you had not embraced that?
Such an interesting question. The other day I was in the waiting room, the office, for some doctor's checkup. And there was a mother and a daughter, and they were the same person. They were fighting, they were yelling, they were accusing each other of things. They were just not knowing how to love each other. And I was like, wow, that would have been me. That was me at 16, 17, 18, 19. I mean, I was always fighting with my mother, and just hearing that would be me completely. And I would also, I don't know, I would be clinically depressed because I was constantly falling asleep when I was doing mundane work that didn't feel aligned. I literally was like narcoleptic. I think that's the right word. Like I'd be driving and falling asleep. I'd get home from teaching and just fall over with my coat on. I was like not alive, not alive. And or even further back, I would be married, miserable, probably divorced with kids, and recreating the situation of being a depressed mother, narcissistic, projecting on my kids, like all that. Ooh, what a good question. I'm so more happy to be myself and be alive.
Right. I was joking with my husband last night, and somebody on Twitter, I think it was Jeanette, she said, what if you woke up tomorrow and it was 2001? And I said, or what would you do? And all these people were talking about things that they would change in their lives and this and the other. I said, I'd panic and ugly cry. Please don't make me go back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was like, I wouldn't do that to you. But yeah, I just thought that was so funny of like, no, when we come out, when we embrace who we are, when we embrace our lives, we don't want to go back. We don't want to go change things because it led us to now, and we love now. And
yes,
you can tell the difference in people who love who they are now, and they don't want to go back. Don't make me go back. Yes. All right. What do you want to say to my audience who has not embraced who they are and come out?
What a good question. Start small. Go in the mirror and see what's there. You know, drop the agenda. I mean, if they're in your world, they know there's some magic involved. And I'm a big fan of mirror work, and I'm a big fan of, you know, listening to Little Munchkin. Like, our inner children need love and attention. And so he's right on time.
Right.
But really to go in the mirror, and I just gave this out as part of my 2018 invocation, is the words, I love you, I'm listening, giving them to yourself, because words are spells. And to really let yourself hear the words, I love you, I'm listening, you know, while you're in the mirror, or if the mirror feels too intense, like to write it in your journal, just to really tune into all the voices, all the different ages, all the different iterations of who you are, so that you really start to hear yourself, and to not push away the negative voices and the darkness, but to really let it in so that you hear it. And once you hear it, you can start to love the different ages of children that live in all of us, that were hurt and wounded and not listened to. And sometimes my 16-year-old self needs to be like, look at me. Or sometimes my little 3-year-old self needs to color in the lines or out of the lines. And so really working with your inner child is a never-ending process. And to make it fun, that nobody's broken, everybody is so right. You're always right. You don't need to prove it. That's like what I want to give everybody. You don't have to prove anything to anyone ever.
Oh, love it. That is so powerful. Thank you so much. So much. All right. How can I'm going to put all your contact information below this video, but if you want to share, like, how can they find you? How can we get some more Shane?
Yay! So I'm everywhere. I mean, yeah, you can find me on Facebook, all the social medias, also on YouTube. And Enchantress Shane is the public figure page on Facebook. And if you want to get real close and personal, you can go to enchantedembodiment.com and play in the land that I've created there. And there's a newsletter of an Enchanted Inner Circle that you can join as well.
Oh, love it. Thank you. I love you so much.
I love you. Thank you for this. What a beautiful experience to be in connection with you and to stay curious and share with you. What a life. Thank you.
Love it. All right. Thank you.